welcome to a special Q&A episode ahead of Game Week 26. Akhil asks, when is the best time to play the wildcard? There were quite a few questions regarding the wildcard, so I'll try and answer them all together. Omkar asks, what do you think about fielding 11 players in Game Week 28 and wildcarding in Game Week 29 without the double game weeks being announced? At this stage, there's no definite answer when it comes to the best time to use the wildcard, and all we can do really is remain flexible and keep our options open for now, until we know more information about the double game weeks. However, in theory, if the postponed fixtures are rescheduled around the same time as they were last season, then we should have enough information regarding the double game weeks in order to use the wildcard around Game Week 29 or 30. The advantage of using the wildcard at that point is that it would make it much easier to navigate the blanks, and in particular the Game Week 28 blank, since we could focus entirely on bringing in players for Game Week 28 for now, without worrying of having a poor squad long term. Providing the postponed fixtures have been announced by that point, then it should be possible to plan ahead for the future double game weeks. And finally, the reason that I prefer a Game Week 30 wildcard, in theory, to a Game Week 29 wildcard, is due to the fixtures turning for a lot of teams. In Game Week 28, our squads will be full of players from West Ham, Swansea and Everton, for example, but in Game Week 29, West Ham are at home to Leicester, Everton are at home to Hull, and Swansea travel to Bournemouth, so it might not be necessary to lose those players until the following game week. But again, it's not set in stone, there are a number of ways to use the wildcard, and this is just a suggestion. The best thing to do for now is to remain flexible and see what happens nearer the time. One Stop FPL asks, how many players should we have for Game Week 28? Similarly, Tom asks, how important is it to field all 11 players on Game Week 28 if the wildcard has already been used? So it certainly does depend on whether you've still got the wildcard available. If you haven't, then you're going to need to find a balance between the players to field in Game Week 28 and the players you want for the future double game weeks. For example, you're probably not going to want to be selling Sanchez or Ibrahimovic if you've already used the wildcard, because you know you're probably going to need them back in for the double game weeks. So in that situation, I'd say the best thing to do is to make use of the 4 bench spots in your squad. Jakupovic is a great second goalkeeper, Tom Carroll is a good 5th midfielder, and there are plenty of cheap defenders such as Maguire, Mawson and Funes Mori, so you can bring in those kind of players without selling the likes of Sanchez and Ibrahimovic, and without altering the balance of your squad too much. The second thing to note is that the majority of FPL managers won't be fielding 11 players in Game Week 28, unless there are some major upsets in the FA Cup, so don't worry too much if you don't have a full squad that week. Looking at the ownership of players, it's likely that current teams on average have around 4 players that are guaranteed to play in Game Week 28, as things stand. If you're an active manager, chances are you've probably already got more than that, and you can use your remaining free transfers between now and then to improve that number. We'll know a lot more regarding which teams will definitely blank after the FA Cup games this weekend. Burton asks, when could the blank game weeks in 26 and 28 be rescheduled? For the answer to this question, I've taken a quote from Ben Krellin's Twitter feed. So Ben suggests that there might be as many as 4 double game week fixtures in Game Week 34, and 1 or 2 double game week fixtures in Game Week 32, 33, 35 or 36, but Game Week 37 will be the biggest double game week. If you don't already, be sure to follow Ben on Twitter for all your blank game week and double game week updates. Nick asks, should I get Gabbiadini as my 3rd striker, along with Ibra and Lukaku, or get a cheap 3rd striker? First of all, Gabbiadini doesn't have a fixture in Game Week 26, so he's certainly not one to be bringing in right now. But the issue of a 3rd striker is one that lots of people were asking about, and similarly, Tom asks, who in your opinion is the best 3rd striker with a maximum price of 7.5 million and who won't blank over the next few weeks? So we're not blessed with too many options as things stand. Once again, things could change if a big team were to be knocked out of the FA Cup this weekend. But the best 4 current options in my opinion are Andy Carroll from West Ham, Llorente from Swansea, Rondon from West Brom, and Nias from Hull. He recently moved from Everton on loan, of course. Andy Carroll looks the standout pick in terms of quality, with 4 goals in his last 5 appearances. However, his fitness is the biggest concern. Rondon hasn't been impressive, and is without a goal in his last 9 Premier League games, but he could be worth another look, with back-to-back home games against Bournemouth and Crystal Palace coming up. Llorente's doing okay, 2 goals in his last 6 games, and part of a Swansea team that have put together some form of late. But Niasse is the interesting one here for me, aside from Andy Carroll. He's only recently moved to Hull and played his first 90 minutes last game week, but he seems to be favoured for now to lead the line and has taken as many shots on target as Andy Carroll despite playing around 100 minutes less than the West Ham striker over the last 6 game weeks. Super Andrew asks, should we drop players that have a blank game week, and if so, which players should we replace? On a similar note, Mahmoud asks, which one to sell this game week, Sanchez or Ibra? And FPL Chelsea asks, Sanchez to Hazard, Ibra to Costa, or neither? So a lot of us are considering dropping Ibrahimovic and Sanchez right now, most likely because they're the most expensive and most owned players with blank game weeks coming up. Not only will they blank in game week 26, but if their teams advance in the FA Cup this weekend, then we're likely to see a blank in game week 28 for the pair as well. So on that basis, you can certainly justify selling either of them. If you are only going to sell one of them, it may be worth considering their game week 27 fixtures. Sanchez is away to Liverpool that game week, while Ibrahimovic faces a home game against Bournemouth and looks the standout captain option for that game week. So for that reason, my personal opinion would be to keep hold of Ibrahimovic for now and look to move Sanchez on. But let's look at some popular replacements for the pair in Hazard and Costa. Neither have been at their best in terms of FPL returns recently, with just 1 goal each during the last 4 game weeks. As you'd expect, Costa has the better shots on target stats, while Hazard's assist potential is more impressive. Chelsea's fixtures are certainly appealing, with home games against Swansea, Palace and potentially Watford coming up. Once again though, there is a potential blank for them in game week 28, which slightly lessens their appeal. If the Watford game does end up going ahead, these two will be very highly transferred in. But for now, the best thing to do once again is to hold off from making any transfers until we see what happens with the FA Cup games at the weekend. Rubesh asks, is it wise to move to bring in Hull defenders as they're likely in form right now? And Sahil says he's looking for a 5th defender to start in game week 27 and 28. Maguire, Robertson or Mawson? First of all, we'll tackle the popular Robertson versus Maguire dilemma. There may be small doubts over Maguire's place long term, if and when all centre-backs are fit and available for Hull. But given that you're probably only going to need your Hull defender for a couple of weeks, you shouldn't really need to worry about that. While neither of the pair have scored in the last 4 game weeks, Maguire's underlying stats have been incredible for a defender. He's managed 8 shots in total, 3 of which have hit the target, and he's showing a similar assist potential to Robertson as well, with 2 attempted assists compared to Robertson's 3. In terms of whether to invest in a Swansea or Hull defender, I think you could make a case for either. Mawson and Maguire both clearly have attacking threat. Mawson has converted that into goals more recently, but Hull have looked slightly more solid defensively. Ultimately, I think it comes down to when you need to bring them in. If you're bringing a defender in this week, it makes sense to go with one from Hull, given their fixture against Burnley at home, compared with Swansea's fixture away to Chelsea. However, if you're looking for just game week 27 and 28, it's much more even, with the two teams facing each other in game week 28, while Swansea host Burnley in game week 27, and Hull travel to Leicester. Finally, Akeem asks, Lukaku and Costa, who is the better captain for next game week? They're both bound to be highly capped in this game week, with Lukaku facing Sunderland at home, while Costa is up against Swansea. Lukaku is apparently suffering from a minor calf injury, but he's expected to be able to return to face Sunderland, so that hopefully won't be an issue. On form, you have to say Lukaku looks the better pick, with 4 goals in his last 4 games, compared to just 1 goal from Costa. But in terms of underlying stats, it's a lot closer, with Costa managing just 1 less shot on target than Lukaku. Given the form of Swansea and Sunderland though, I'd still back Lukaku myself. So that concludes this Q&A episode. Thanks for getting in your questions, and I'm sorry if I wasn't able to answer your question this time. Hopefully we can do more of these videos, so be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe for more FPL content if you haven't already.